You wake up in the morning, and there's this emptiness. Not hunger, not pain, just nothing. A hollow space below your navel, where something vital used to live, as if the part of you that knew how to want things, to desire things, to feel things, has simply gone to sleep and never woken up. You go through your day, you function, you do what needs to be done. But inside, there's this strange absence, like watching your own life from behind a thick glass wall. You're there, but you're not really there. Does this sound familiar? Sex, if it happens, feels like a performance. Your body knows the choreography. It moves through the motions. But you, where are you? Somewhere far away, observing, waiting for it to be over. The pleasure that once lived in your flesh, it's become a distant memory. Or maybe you've convinced yourself it was never really there at all. Creativity doesn't flow anymore. You sit down to create, to write, to make something beautiful, and there's just silence. The well is dry. The fire that used to burn in your belly, that made you want to dance, to sing, to bring something new into the world. It's gone out, extinguished, leaving only cold ashes. Your pelvis feels frozen, tight, locked, like a river that turned to ice in the middle of winter. You might have lower back pain that never quite goes away, or numbness in your hips, in your lower belly, places where sensation used to live. Now there's just this dull heaviness, and emotionally, you're functioning. You smile when you're supposed to smile. You show up when you're supposed to show up. But joy, spontaneous, irrational, overflowing joy. When was the last time you felt that? When was the last time you laughed so hard your whole body shook? When was the last time you felt alive in every cell? I know this territory. I have studied this frozen landscape, and I've observed it in countless women who have come seeking answers, not understanding what has happened to them. They say, I think I'm depressed, or maybe my hormones are off, or I just don't feel like myself anymore. And yes, stress matters. Hormones matter. Life circumstances matter. But what I've come to understand through years of working with women on this path is that something deeper is happening. Something that medicine doesn't quite see. Something that psychology can't quite touch. Something energetic. Something alchemical. What you're experiencing, what I'm describing to you right now, it has a name in the ancient traditions. It's called a frozen sacral center, a blockage in Svadhisthana, the second chakra, the place where life force itself is meant to flow. And here's what I need you to understand. This isn't a personal failure. This isn't because you didn't try hard enough, or because you're broken, or because something is fundamentally wrong with you. This is a collective freezing, a cultural wound, something that has been done to women generation after generation for centuries. You are not alone in this frozen place. And more importantly, this can be changed. The ice can melt. The fire can return. Life force can flow through you again. Not as some distant fantasy, but as a tangible, embodied reality. And in the next moments, you're going to understand exactly how this freezing happened, why your body learned to shut down this sacred center. And then I will give you the keys to thought, to awaken what has been sleeping, to remember the fire that lives at the core of your being. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you is knowledge that was hidden for centuries, knowledge that was kept in the temple schools, passed from priestess to priestess, from master to student. Knowledge that the modern world desperately tried to make you forget. But you're here now. And that means some part of you remembers. Some part of you is ready to come back to life. In ancient Egypt, in the temple complexes of Luxor and Karnak, there lived priestesses of Isis, women who had been initiated into mysteries that modern science still cannot fully explain. And at the center of their understanding was this truth: a woman's body is a living Atanor, an alchemical furnace, a sacred vessel where transformation itself takes place. The Atanor, in the language of alchemy, is the sealed container where base metals are transmuted into gold, where lead becomes precious, where death becomes life. And the priestesses knew every woman carries this furnace within her, located precisely in the lower belly, below the navel, in what we now call the sacral chakra, Svadhisthana, the dwelling place of the self, this center, this sacred fire. It is where life literally begins, where children are conceived, where creative energy is born, where sexual power originates. It is the seat of desire itself, the source of your capacity to want, to feel, to flow with life, to experience pleasure without shame. When this center is open, when the Atanor burns brightly, a woman becomes a conduit for life force. Everything she touches comes alive. Her creativity flows like water. Her sexuality is a source of power, not shame. Her body moves with fluid grace. She knows what she wants. She allows herself to feel what she feels. She gives herself permission to experience pleasure, and she doesn't apologize for it. But here's what happened. Here's what they don't teach you in school. For thousands of years, there has been a systematic campaign to extinguish this fire in women, to freeze the sacral center, to close the Atanor. It began when the old goddess religions were destroyed, when the temple priestesses were hunted, when sacred sexuality became witchcraft, when women's bodies became property, not temples. The early patriarchal religions taught that a woman's body was sinful, that desire was weakness, that pleasure was the devil's playground. Women were told, suppress your sexuality, control your desires, be pure, be good, be small, be silent. And generation after generation, women learned to do exactly that. They learned to shut down, to go numb, to freeze. The ice didn't form overnight. It accumulated slowly. With every "good girls don't do that," with every "you should be ashamed," with every message that said, "your power is dangerous, your pleasure is wrong, your aliveness is too much." And now we live in a world where millions of women walk around with frozen sacral centers, not knowing that this is what happened, not understanding that what they call depression, what they call low libido, what they call just getting older, is actually an energetic blockage, a sealed Atanor, a fire that was deliberately put out. What you feel as emptiness is actually ice, frozen water, frozen life force. And here's the alchemical truth. Ice is not the opposite of water. Ice is water in a different state, which means it can change states again. It can melt. It can flow. It can return to its natural form. This is not a psychological problem that you solve by thinking differently. This is not a hormonal imbalance that you fix with a pill. This is an alchemical freeze, an energetic lockdown, a seal placed on your most vital center. And the ancient traditions, the Egyptian priestesses, the tantric masters of India, the Taoist alchemists of China, they all knew this. They had maps. They had practices. They had rituals specifically designed to thaw the frozen sacral center, to reopen the Atanor, to rekindle the sacred fire. In Tantra, they called this energy Shakti, the feminine creative force. When Shakti is blocked in Svadhisthana, a woman loses her connection to life itself. She becomes a shadow. She functions, but she doesn't thrive. The tantric texts are very clear. To awaken a woman's power, you must first awaken her sacral center. You must restore the flow of Shakti through the second chakra. The Taoist alchemists called this area the lower dantian, the cauldron, the furnace where qi, life energy, accumulates and transforms. They taught that when the lower dantian is cold, when the cauldron has no fire, a person cannot cultivate vitality, cannot transform their essence, cannot achieve what they called the magnum opus, the great work of inner alchemy. And the Egyptian priestesses, they understood that this center was directly connected to Isis herself, the Great Mother, the goddess of magic and resurrection. To freeze the sacral center was to disconnect from the creative power of the universe. To thaw it was to become a channel for divine feminine energy once again. Now, maybe you're thinking, this sounds esoteric. This sounds like ancient mythology that has nothing to do with my real life. I understand that thought. The rational mind wants concrete answers, modern solutions, something it can grasp. But stay with me, because what I'm sharing with you isn't just philosophy. It's a map. And in the coming moments, I'm going to give you the practices, the actual techniques that bring this map to life, that turn ancient wisdom into embodied experience, that transform your frozen center back into the living Atanor it was always meant to be. The knowledge I'm sharing with you right now, it was forbidden for centuries, hidden in mystery schools, passed only to initiates who had proven themselves ready. But you're here. You're listening. Which means, on some level, your soul remembers. On some level, you know this is true. Your body recognizes this teaching, even if your mind doesn't fully understand it yet. And that recognition, that's the first crack in the ice. That's the first ray of warmth touching the frozen surface. The beginning of the thaw. Now, let us look deeper into this frozen landscape. Let us name what you have been living with, perhaps for years, without fully understanding it. Because diagnosis, true diagnosis, is the first act of alchemy. You cannot transmute what you cannot see. You cannot thaw what you refuse to acknowledge is frozen. A frozen sacral center reveals itself through the body first. Always through the body. Your pelvis. Place your awareness there for a moment. How does it feel? For most women with this blockage, the pelvis feels tight, locked, like a door that is rusted shut. The muscles around your hips hold chronic tension that you've stopped noticing because it's been there so long. It has become your normal. You might experience lower back pain that comes and goes, but never fully resolves. Or a dull, persistent ache in your sacrum, that place at the base of your spine. Sometimes it's numbness, a lack of sensation in your lower belly, in your hips, in your inner thighs, places where feeling used to live. Now there's just this dead zone, this absence. When you sit, you might notice you hold your pelvis tucked under, collapsed, as if you're trying to take up less space, as if you're apologizing for having a body at all. Or the opposite, rigidly held, braced, armored. Either way, there is no fluidity, no natural sway, no ease. The second sign is in your breath. Notice right now, where does your breath go? If your sacral center is frozen, your breath barely reaches your belly. It stays shallow, up in your chest. You might even hold your breath without realizing it, especially when you're stressed, or when anything remotely sexual or creative arises. The breath stops because unconsciously you don't want to feel what's there. You don't want to touch the frozen place. Emotionally, this is where it becomes unmistakable. When the Atanor is cold, when the sacral fire has gone out, you lose access to joy, real joy. Not the polite smile you put on for others, but the kind of joy that erupts from your core, that makes you want to dance, that makes you laugh until tears stream down your face. When was the last time you felt that? Not contentment, not satisfaction, but wild, irrational, overflowing joy. You function. Of course you function. Women with frozen sacral centers are often highly functional. You go to work. You take care of responsibilities. You show up. But underneath all that functioning, there's this profound emptiness, this sense that you're going through the motions of life, but life itself, the juice of it, the vitality, that's missing. Creativity doesn't flow, or if it does, it feels forced, manufactured. You sit down to create something, and instead of flowing, there's just this blank wall. The muse doesn't visit anymore. Ideas don't spark. The passion that used to drive your creative work, it's vanished. And you might tell yourself, I'm just getting older. I'm too busy. I don't have time. But the truth is deeper. The creative well has frozen over. And then there is your sexuality. This is where the freeze reveals itself most starkly. Sex, if it happens at all, feels mechanical, performative. Your body knows what to do, but you, where are you? You're watching from outside yourself, waiting for it to be over, thinking about tomorrow's tasks while your body goes through familiar motions. Desire, real desire, the kind that rises from your belly like heat, that makes your body hungry. When did you last feel that? Not the mental idea of wanting sex, not the thought that you should want it, but the visceral pull, the magnetic draw, the body's yes. For many women, this has been absent for so long, they've forgotten it ever existed. Some women tell me, I just have a low libido. It's always been this way. But when we dig deeper, when we trace back through their history, there was a time before the freeze set in, before the shame accumulated, before the messages that said, good women don't feel this, good women don't want this. The desire was there once, and then, layer by layer, year by year, it was buried under ice. And here's what I need you to understand, what I have observed again and again in the journeys of countless women I have worked with. This is not a psychological problem. You cannot think your way out of a frozen sacral center. You cannot affirm your way back to desire. You cannot visualize your way into creative flow. This is a somatic freeze, an energetic blockage, an alchemical state of matter. Lead instead of gold, ice instead of water, stagnation instead of flow. And just as you cannot melt ice by thinking warm thoughts about it, you cannot thaw your sacral center through mental work alone. The nervous system holds this freeze. Your nervous system learned, perhaps when you were very young, perhaps through years of cultural conditioning, that it was not safe to feel the full power of your sacral energy. Not safe to want. Not safe to desire. Not safe to feel pleasure without shame. And so it did what nervous systems do. It shut down. It froze. It went into protective lockdown. This is not your fault. Let me say that again. This is not your fault. You did not choose this freeze. You did not consciously decide one day to disconnect from your life force. This happened to you through years of messages, through trauma perhaps, through living in a world that systematically teaches women to be small, to be controlled, to suppress their wild, creative, sexual power. But here is the alchemical truth, the truth that the ancient priestesses knew. Ice is not the opposite of water. Ice is water that has changed state, which means it can change state again. The creative energy hasn't disappeared. The sexual power hasn't vanished. The capacity for joy, for desire, for aliveness, it's all still there. Frozen, waiting, ready to thaw the moment you know how to apply the right kind of heat. In alchemy, we call the frozen state Nigredo, the blackening, the death stage, the void. It is the first stage of the great work, the magnum opus. And here is what most people don't understand. You cannot skip Nigredo. You cannot bypass it. You must enter it fully. You must acknowledge the freeze, face the emptiness, meet the void where your aliveness used to be. Most women run from this stage. They distract themselves. They numb out further. They throw themselves into work, into taking care of others, into anything that keeps them from feeling the frozen place. But what you resist persists. What you refuse to look at remains. And the ice only grows thicker. So I invite you now to stop running, to turn toward the frozen place. To acknowledge, yes, my sacral center is frozen. My Atanor has gone cold. The fire that should be burning there has been extinguished. This is my Nigredo. This is my meeting with the void. And in that acknowledgement, in that honest facing of what is, the alchemical process begins. Because you cannot transform what you will not see. You cannot thaw what you pretend is not frozen. But once you name it, once you meet it, once you place your awareness directly on the ice, the first rays of warmth begin to penetrate. This is where we are now. In the recognition, in the diagnosis, in the naming of what has been unnamed. And from this place, from this honest acknowledgement of the freeze, we will begin the great work of melting, of thawing, of returning fire to the place where only ice remains. What I am about to share with you is the map, the sacred roadmap that will guide you from ice to fire, from frozen to flowing, from Nigredo to Rubedo. These are the 5 stages of alchemical transmutation of the sacral center. This is the path the ancient priestesses walked. This is the great work. The first stage you are already in. It is called Nigredo, the blackening. This is the meeting with the frozen void, the acknowledgement of what has been lost, the facing of the emptiness where your desire, your creativity, your life force used to live. Most spiritual teachings try to skip this stage. They want to go straight to the light, straight to the positive transformation. But the alchemists knew there is no gold without first encountering the lead. There is no resurrection without first experiencing the death. Nigredo is the dark night of the sacral soul. It is the moment when you stop pretending everything is fine. When you stop saying, "I'm just tired," or "It's just stress," or "It's just my age." It is the moment when you look directly at the frozen landscape within you and you say, "Yes, this is real. This has happened to me. My sacred fire has gone out. And here is what I have observed. Women who try to skip this stage never truly heal. They bounce from technique to technique, from practice to practice, looking for the quick fix, the instant thaw. But lasting transformation, deep transformation, requires that you first honor the death, that you first grieve what was lost, that you first sit in the ashes of the extinguished fire. So if you are in Nigredo right now, know this: you are exactly where you need to be. The darkness is not your enemy. The void is not a mistake. This is the sacred ground from which all transformation grows. Stay here. Feel it fully. Let yourself truly acknowledge the depth of the freeze. The second stage is solutio, the dissolving. This is where we begin to work with the element of water, where we start to soften the rigidity, to thaw the ice. Solutio is the stage of melting, of releasing, of allowing what was solid and frozen to become liquid again. In alchemy, solutio happens when you introduce moisture, flow, softness to what has become hard and brittle. In the body, this means working with breath, with gentle movement, with the water element itself. The ice does not melt through force. It melts through patient, persistent warmth, through the slow accumulation of small heat. This is where we introduce the first practice, the practice that begins the thawing. I call it the breath of fire into the Atanor, and I will guide you through it now. Find a comfortable position. You can sit or you can lie down. Place both of your hands on your lower belly, just below your navel. This is the location of your internal Atanor, your alchemical furnace, the place where transmutation happens. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and begin to breathe slowly, deeply, directing your breath down into your lower belly, not your chest, not your upper abdomen, but low, into the cauldron, into the furnace. Imagine that inside this space, there are embers, glowing coals that have been smoldering for a long time, barely alive. With each inhale, you are fanning these embers. You are bringing fresh oxygen to the dying fire. With each exhale, you are releasing what no longer serves, releasing the old, cold air, making space for warmth. Breathe in, and as you breathe, imagine the embers beginning to glow brighter. Breathe out, and feel any tension, any holding, beginning to soften. Breathe in, fanning the coals. Breathe out, releasing the freeze. You might feel warmth beginning to gather there, or a subtle pulsation, or tingling. You might feel nothing at all yet, and that is perfectly normal. The ice does not melt in one breath, but you have started the process. You have placed your awareness on the frozen place and offered it warmth. That is enough for now. Continue breathing in this way for a few more cycles. And when you feel ready, slowly open your eyes. Place your hand on your lower belly one more time. Acknowledge the Atanor. Thank it for holding this space, for being willing to receive warmth again. This is Solucio. This is the beginning of the thaw. And here is what I need you to understand. This practice must become daily. Not because I say so, but because ice melts slowly. Because the freeze accumulated over years, and it will not fully release in a single session. Every morning, for just 3 to 5 minutes, breathe fire into your Atanor. Fan the embers. Keep offering warmth to the frozen place. The third stage is Albedo, the whitening, the purification. This is where we release the shame, the guilt, the stories that caused the freeze in the first place. Because you can breathe into your sacral center all you want. But if the seal of shame is still in place, if the energetic locks are still engaged, the freeze will return. Albedo is the washing away of what does not belong. In alchemical texts, this stage is often depicted as a bath, a cleansing in pure water. The impurities rise to the surface and are skimmed away, leaving only the essential, the pure, the true. In your body, in your energy field, Albedo means forgiving. Forgiving yourself for all the years you believed the lie that your body was shameful, that your desire was wrong, that your pleasure was sinful. Forgiving yourself for shutting down, for going numb, for protecting yourself in the only way you knew how, and perhaps even more difficult, forgiving your body itself for not responding the way you wanted it to, for not feeling what you thought you should feel, for being frozen when you desperately wanted to be alive. Your body is not your enemy. Your body did what it needed to do to survive. And now it is ready to thaw. But first, it needs your forgiveness, your permission, your blessing to feel again. The fourth stage is citrinitas, the yellowing, the awakening of the inner fire. This is where we move beyond gentle thawing into active ignition, where we don't just soften the ice, we kindle the flame. We call the fire back into the Atanor. Citrinitas is the stage of quickening, of acceleration, of transformation that you can feel coursing through your body. In alchemical symbolism, this is often represented by the sun, by yellow, by gold beginning to emerge from the base metals. This is when you start to feel desire returning, creativity flowing, your body waking up. This stage requires more active practices: sound, movement, dance, the use of sexual energy itself as fuel for the fire. Not sex for the sake of sex, but sexual energy as the raw material of alchemical transformation. This is what the tantric masters understood, what the priestesses of Isis knew. Sexual energy is not separate from spiritual energy. It is the same force, the same fire. And the fifth stage, the completion of the great work, is Rubedo, the reddening, the birth of the new, the full activation of the living Atanor. This is when your sacral center is no longer something you have to think about, something you have to work to keep open. It simply is open, alive, flowing, burning steadily with its own eternal flame. In Rubedo, you have become the alchemical vessel. You are the Atanor. Your body is the furnace where transformation continuously happens. Life force flows through you without obstruction. Desire is natural. Creativity is effortless. Pleasure is your birthright, claimed without shame. Women in Rubedo move differently through the world. They walk with a fluidity, a groundedness, a presence that others can feel. They create from overflow, not from depletion. They desire without desperation. They feel without drowning. They have reclaimed the sacred fire, and that fire, it does not go out again, because now they know how to tend it. These are the 5 stages. From Nigredo to solutio to albedo to citrinitas to rubedo. From the meeting with the frozen void to the full ignition of the sacred flame. This is the path. This is the map. And in the moments to come, I will give you the practices for each stage, the keys to unlock each gate, the techniques to walk this alchemical path in your own body, in your own life, in your own sacred center. Now, I need to address something that many of you have likely experienced. You've tried to heal this. You've tried therapy, self-help books, positive affirmations, visualization practices, and perhaps some of it helped for a while. But the freeze, the deep freeze in your sacral center, it remained, or it returned, and you began to think, maybe this is just who I am. Maybe I can't be fixed. Let me share what I have observed through years of dedicated work as a male guide helping women through this transformation. Psychology is powerful. I respect it deeply. The work of understanding our patterns, our wounds, our conditioning. This is sacred work. But here is the truth that took me years to fully grasp. When the blockage is in the body, in the nervous system, in the energy field itself, talking about it only goes so far. The mind can understand the problem perfectly. You can intellectually know that your shame around sexuality comes from cultural conditioning. You can trace it back to childhood messages, religious programming, patriarchal oppression. You can understand every single reason why your sacral center froze. You can have complete cognitive clarity. And still, the freeze remains. Still, desire does not return. Still, the Atanor stays cold. Why? Because the freeze is not held in your thoughts. It is held in your tissues, in your fascia, in your pelvic floor muscles, in your nervous system's patterns of activation and shutdown. The body keeps the score, as they say, and the body does not speak the language of words. It speaks the language of sensation, of movement, of breath, of sound, of touch. Your nervous system learned, perhaps decades ago, that it was not safe to feel the full power of your sacral energy. Maybe there was trauma. Maybe there was just the slow accumulation of shame messages Maybe it was a survival adaptation to an environment where expressing desire or pleasure would have been punished. Whatever the cause, your nervous system made a decision, a brilliant, protective decision. Shut it down, freeze it, lock it away, keep you safe by keeping you numb. And here is what is crucial to understand. That decision was not made in your thinking mind. It was made in the ancient, instinctual parts of your brain, in your autonomic nervous system, the parts that operate below conscious awareness, the parts that don't respond to logic or reason or positive thinking. These parts respond to direct experience, to felt safety, to somatic signals that say, it is now safe to thaw. It is now safe to feel again. This is why affirmations don't work for this particular healing. You can stand in front of a mirror and say, I am a sexual, creative, powerful woman 1,000 times. And your conscious mind might even believe it. But your nervous system, your body, is waiting for proof. Not verbal proof, somatic proof. It needs to feel the warmth returning. It needs to experience movement in the frozen places. It needs sensory evidence that the danger has passed. This is also why traditional talk therapy, as valuable as it is for many things, often cannot reach this particular freeze. Because to thaw the sacral center, you must work directly with the body. You must engage the practices that speak the nervous system's language. Breath work that literally changes your physiology. Movement that releases stored tension. Sound that vibrates through frozen tissues. Touch that communicates safety directly to your cells. The ancient traditions understood this. The Egyptian priestesses did not sit in circles discussing their feelings about their sexuality. They danced. They moved their hips in ritual movements that awakened the sacral fire. The tantric practitioners did not merely contemplate the nature of Shakti. They breathed it. They sounded it. They moved it through their bodies with specific practices designed to activate dormant energy. The Taoist masters knew the lower dantian, the cauldron, is cultivated through direct energetic work, through breathing into it, through circulating qi through it, through physical practices that build heat in that specific location. Not through thinking about it, not through understanding it intellectually, through doing it, through embodied practice. So if you have tried psychological work, and it has not fully resolved this freeze. Please hear me. You have not failed. The approach simply was not designed for this particular problem. It's like trying to melt ice by thinking warm thoughts about it. The thoughts are fine. They're even true. But ice melts through heat, through direct application of warmth, through physical change of state. And that is what we are doing here. That is what the practices I am sharing with you are designed to do. They apply heat directly to the frozen place. They speak the language your nervous system understands. They create the somatic conditions for thaw to occur. Now, let me guide you through the second practice, the practice that takes us deeper into solutio, deeper into the melting. This practice works with movement, with the water element, with the wisdom of your pelvis itself. I call this practice the pelvic wave, the dance of Svadhisthana. And here's what you need to know before we begin. Your pelvis knows how to move. Your hips remember fluidity. Even if it has been years since you allowed them to move freely, the memory is there, stored in your body, waiting to be awakened. Stand up now if you are able. If standing is not accessible to you, you can do a version of this practice seated or even lying down. The key is not the position. It is the intention to allow movement in your pelvis, to give your sacral center permission to express through motion. Stand with your feet about hip width apart. Let your knees soften slightly. They should not be locked. Place your hands on your hips, or let them hang naturally by your sides, whatever feels most comfortable. Now, begin to move your pelvis in slow circles. Not from your upper body, not from your legs, from your pelvis itself. Imagine you are stirring a large cauldron with your hips. Slow, deliberate circles. First in one direction. Notice where the movement feels smooth. Notice where you encounter resistance, where the circle wants to become smaller, where your body says, no, not there. Breathe as you move. Do not hold your breath. Let the breath flow naturally, in and out, as your pelvis traces its circles. And as you continue, begin to vary the movement. Make the circles larger, then smaller. Change direction. Let your pelvis draw figure eights in the air, infinity symbols, whatever pattern wants to emerge. You might feel self-conscious. You might hear a voice that says, "This is ridiculous," or "I look stupid," or "I can't do this." Notice that voice. Thank it for trying to protect you. And then, gently, continue moving anyway. Because that voice is the voice of the freeze. It is the guardian that has been keeping you safe by keeping you locked. And now, you are choosing to move past the guardian, to reclaim the territory it has been protecting. As you move, pay attention to where you feel resistance in your pelvis, tightness in your hip flexors, gripping in your pelvic floor, rigidity in your lower back. These are the places where the ice is thickest, where the freeze has taken deepest root. Do not try to force these places open. Simply breathe into them. Let your awareness rest there. Let warmth begin to accumulate through attention and breath and gentle, persistent movement. Continue this practice for at least 5 minutes. Longer if it feels good. If you have music that moves you, put it on. Let the rhythm guide your hips. Let your body lead. Let your thinking mind step back and simply observe. Watch what happens when you give your pelvis permission to move freely. Watch what wants to thaw. And when you feel complete, when the movement naturally wants to slow and stop, honor that. Stand still. Place your hands on your lower belly again. Feel the warmth there, the aliveness that may have been stirred through movement, the subtle pulsation, the sense that something has shifted, even if only slightly. This is the work of Solutio. The gentle, patient melting, the restoration of flow to what has been frozen. And like the breath practice I shared earlier, this is not a one-time event. This is a practice you return to, daily if possible. Because movement is medicine for the frozen sacral center. Movement is the language of water, and water dissolves ice. You have begun the thaw. You have placed your awareness on the frozen place. You have offered it breath. You have offered it movement. Now, we move deeper into the transformation. Now we enter the stages that require more courage, more vulnerability. The practices that do not just melt, but purify, and then ignite. What I am about to share with you comes from the deepest well of sacred tradition. These are not techniques I invented. These are not modern innovations. These are the actual practices, the hidden rituals that priestesses and masters have used for millennia to awaken dormant sacral power, to break through energetic seals, to restore what was lost. We are now entering Libido, the whitening, the purification. And this stage requires something that may be the most difficult work of all. It requires you to release the shame, the guilt, the stories that caused the freeze in the first place. Because you can breathe into your sacral center all you want. You can move your pelvis with perfect fluidity. But if the seal of shame is still in place, if the energetic locks are still engaged, the freeze will return. Libido is the washing away of what does not belong. In alchemical texts, this stage is often depicted as a bath, a cleansing in pure water. The impurities rise to the surface and are skimmed away, leaving only the essential, the pure, the true, in your body, in your energy field. Libido means forgiving. Forgiving yourself for all the years you believed the lie that your body was shameful, that your desire was wrong, that your pleasure was sinful. Forgiving yourself for shutting down, for going numb, for protecting yourself in the only way you knew how. And perhaps even more difficult, forgiving your body itself for not responding the way you wanted it to, for not feeling what you thought you should feel, for being frozen when you desperately wanted to be alive. Your body is not your enemy. Your body did what it needed to do to survive. And now it is ready to thaw. But first, it needs your forgiveness, your permission, your blessing to feel again. So we begin with the practice that opens the gate to all that follows. The practice that removes the seal. I call this the ritual of body forgiveness. And here is why it is essential. Shame is a seal. Guilt is a lock. As long as these energies are wrapped around your sacral center, as long as you carry the belief that your body is wrong, that your desire is shameful, that your sexuality is sinful, the fire cannot fully ignite. Or it will ignite briefly and then be extinguished again by the weight of shame. This practice is simple in form, but it requires courage. It requires you to be vulnerable with yourself, to speak words you may never have spoken, to offer tenderness to the part of you that has received only hardness. Here is how you do it. Find a private space where you will not be interrupted. Lie down or sit comfortably. Place both of your hands on your lower belly, over your womb space if you have one, over your sacral center. Feel the warmth of your own hands. Feel that you are holding yourself, cradling this sacred part of your body that has carried so much. And then speak to your body, out loud if possible. Tell it what it needs to hear, what it has needed to hear for years, perhaps decades. Here are some words you might use. Adapt them. Make them your own. But let them be said. I forgive you. I forgive you for all the years I believed you were shameful, for all the times I wished you were different, for every moment I blamed you for not feeling what I thought you should feel. I forgive you for shutting down, for going numb, for freezing. You did what you needed to do to protect me, to keep me safe, and I honor that. I release the guilt. I release the shame that was never mine to carry. I release the messages that told me my body was wrong, my desire was dangerous, my pleasure was sinful. These are not my truths. They do not belong here. I let them go. I give you permission. Permission to feel again. Permission to want. Permission to experience pleasure without apology. You are not bad. You are not broken. You are sacred. You are the living Atanor, the temple where transformation happens. I am sorry. I am sorry for abandoning you, for disconnecting from you, for treating you like an enemy instead of the wise, miraculous vessel that you are. I am here now. I am listening. I am ready to come home to you. Speak these words or your own version of them. Speak them slowly. Let them land. Let yourself feel what arises. Tears are welcome. Grief is welcome. Rage is welcome. Relief is welcome. Whatever needs to move through you, let it move. This is the purification. This is Albedo. This is the washing away of what has kept the fire extinguished. Take as long as you need with this practice. This is not something to rush through. The seal of shame has been in place for years, perhaps lifetimes. It deserves time and attention and tenderness to be released. Breathe. Hold yourself. Speak the words. Feel what arises. And when you feel complete, when you sense that something has shifted, that something has been released, rest your hands on your lower belly one more time and simply say, I am ready. I am ready to feel. I am ready for the fire to return. This is Albedo. This is the purification that must happen before the flame can truly ignite. And now that the seal has been removed, now that the shame has been washed away, now that permission has been granted, we can call the fire back. We can move into citrinitas, the yellowing, the awakening of the inner flame. The next practice uses sound, and not just any sound, a specific vibrational frequency that has been recognized across cultures as the key that unlocks the second chakra. In the tantric tradition, every chakra has a seed sound, a bija mantra, a sonic formula that vibrates at the exact frequency needed to activate that energy center. For Svadhisthana, for the sacral chakra, that sound is Vam. V-A-M. But it is not spoken quickly. It is not chanted mechanically. It must be sounded, resonated, vibrated through the body with intention and awareness. Here is what the ancient yogis understood, what modern physics now confirms. Everything is vibration. Your body is not solid. It is energy in motion, particles vibrating at different frequencies. And sound, properly directed sound, can change those frequencies, can shake loose what is stuck, can ignite what has been dormant. I have seen this happen. I have witnessed women who tried everything else finally break through into activation through this practice as I guided them. Not because it is magic in some supernatural sense, but because it is precise. It is targeted. It speaks directly to the energetic architecture of the sacral center. Now that you have cleared the space through Albedo, now that the shame has been released, your sacral center is ready to receive this vibration, ready to be activated. The purified vessel can now hold the flame. So let us do this practice together now, and I invite you to do it fully, not halfway, not self-consciously. Give yourself permission to make sound, to vibrate, to be heard, even if no one else is listening. Your body is listening. Your sacral center is listening. Sit comfortably, spine as straight as possible without strain. Place one hand on your lower belly, below your navel. This hand will feel the vibration as you sound. Take a deep breath in. Fill your lungs completely. And on the exhale, sound the mantra, Vam. Let me demonstrate first so you hear the quality of sound we are creating. Vam. Long, sustained. The V is brief, then the sound opens into the A and finishes with the resonant M that hums through your body. Now you try. Breathe in deeply and exhale into sound. Vam. Feel where that sound resonates in your body. It should vibrate low, in your pelvis, in your sacral area. If you feel it only in your throat or head, adjust. Send the vibration down. Imagine the sound waves traveling through your torso and concentrating in your lower belly. Again, inhale. Va. This time, as you sound, notice what arises. You might feel heat. You might feel tingling. You might feel the first spark of energy beginning to move. Whatever arises, let it. This is the fire beginning to kindle. This is Citrinitas awakening. In the tantric texts, they say to repeat this mantra 11 times. 11 is a sacred number, a master number. So we will do this together. I will guide you through all 11 repetitions, and I invite you to stay fully present, to notice how the sound changes, how your body responds differently with each repetition, how the vibration penetrates deeper each time, how the fire grows stronger. Ready? Breathe in. Va. 1. Breathe in. Va. 2. Breathe in. Va. 3. Notice what is happening in your pelvis, in your sacral center. The embers are being fanned. The first flames are beginning to flicker. Stay with the sensation. Breathe in. Va. 4. Breathe in. Va. 5. Breathe in. Va. 6. You are halfway through. The vibration is building, accumulating. The fire is growing. Breathe in. Va. 7. Breathe in. Va. 8. Breathe in. Va. 9. 2 more. Let these be the most powerful, the deepest. Pour all your intention into awakening the flame. Breathe in. Va. 10. And the final one. This is the sound that seals the activation, that confirms the fire has returned. Va. 11. Sit in silence now. Keep your hand on your lower belly. Feel what is moving there. The vibration continues even after the sound stops. The energy you have set in motion, it is rippling through you, touching places that have been frozen, waking what has been asleep. The fire is no longer just embers. It is beginning to burn. This is the power of sound. This is why the priestesses sang, why the monks chanted, why sacred traditions across the world have always known. Vibration is transformation. Sound is alchemy. And your voice, properly wielded, is one of the most potent tools for awakening your own sacred fire. And now, the final practice. The practice that brings citrinitas to its full expression. This is where we stop kindling gently and allow the fire to roar. This is the dance of the priestess. In the temples of ancient Egypt, there were sacred dances. Not performances, not entertainment, but rituals of power. The priestesses would move their bodies in specific ways. Figure eights with the hips, serpentine undulations of the spine, circular movements that spiraled energy up from the earth and down from the heavens. And these movements were not symbolic. They were literal, energetic technology. They activated the channels. They moved stuck life force. They awakened the sleeping serpent power. The dance I am inviting you into is not choreographed. There are no steps to memorize, no technique to perfect. This is about letting your body move you, letting the sacral energy that has been purified through albedo, that has been kindled through sound, now express itself through unrestricted, uncontrolled, spontaneous movement. You have done the preparation. You have released the shame. You have activated the energy through sound. Now, your body is ready to move in ways it has not moved in years, perhaps ever. And this movement, this is where the fire fully ignites, where citrinitas reaches its peak, where you remember what it feels like to be completely, unapologetically alive. Put on music, if you have music, that makes your body want to move. Or dance in silence. It does not matter. Stand in your space. Close your eyes. Place your awareness in your lower belly, in your pelvis, in the Atanor that you have been breathing into, moving, purifying, sounding into. And ask it, how do you want to move? Then let it move you. Not from your head, not thinking about what the movement should look like. Let your hips lead. Let them draw circles, figure eights, spirals in the air. Let your whole body join. Let your spine undulate. Let your arms lift or fall as they want to. Let yourself look ridiculous. Let yourself be wild. Let yourself be free. This is where most women hit their strongest resistance. The voice that says, "This is too much. This is inappropriate. This is shameful." But you have released that shame in Libido. You have removed that seal. And now you are free to move without that voice stopping you. That voice, it is the last guardian, the final gate. The part of you that is terrified that if you let this energy fully express, something terrible will happen, that you will lose control, that you will be punished, that you will be too much. But here's the truth I have come to know. Your body knows the path to its own full activation. When you stop controlling it, when you stop managing it, when you let it move the way it needs to move, it will show you what has been locked away. It will release what needs releasing. It will express what has been suppressed. And in that expression, in that ecstatic, unself-conscious movement, the fire roars to life. Dance for 10 minutes. 15. 20. Dance until you feel complete, until your body naturally wants to slow, until you feel the heat burning steadily in your sacral center, until you remember what it feels like to be alive, fully alive, unapologetically alive, until the fire is no longer something you are trying to create, dance is complete, when your body comes to stillness, stand or sit. Place both hands on your lower belly one final time. Feel the warmth there, the aliveness, the fire that has returned. This is Citrinitas. This is the awakening of the inner flame. This is the moment when you stop just melting the ice and start burning with your own sacred fire. The Atanor is lit. The great work continues. And you are becoming the living flame. Now you know. You know what a frozen sacral center feels like. You know the history of how it became frozen. You know the 5 alchemical stages of transformation. You know the practices. You have been given the keys, the map, the rituals that have been hidden for centuries. And here's what I need you to understand. You cannot unknow this. You can try to forget. You can close this window and go back to your routines, your distractions, your numbed out existence. But something has changed. Something has been awakened just by hearing these words, just by placing your awareness on the frozen place, just by acknowledging what has been unnamed for so long. Every time you feel that emptiness now, that absence where desire should be, you will remember. You will remember that there is another way. That this is not just who you are. That this is not your destiny. You will remember that ice can melt. That fire can return. That your body is a living Atanor, waiting to burn. And that knowledge, that knowing, it cannot be unlearned. It will follow you. It will whisper to you in the moments when you are going through the motions of your life. It will tap you on the shoulder when you are performing sexuality instead of feeling it. When you are pushing through creative work instead of flowing with it. When you are surviving instead of thriving. So the question is no longer, do you know? The question is, what will you do with what you know? Will you choose the path of transformation? Will you commit to the great work? Will you walk through the 5 stages from Nigredo to Rubedo? Or will you choose to stay in the familiar freeze, even though it is killing you slowly, even though every cell in your body is crying out for warmth? I cannot make this choice for you. No one can. This is your initiation, your portal, your moment of decision. And initiation always requires a choice, always demands that you step through a threshold, knowing that once you cross it, You cannot return to who you were before. Some of you are afraid right now. I feel it. I know it. You are thinking, what if I fail? What if I do these practices and nothing changes? What if my freeze is too deep, too old, too permanent? What if I am the exception, the one for whom this does not work? I have seen women stand at this exact threshold, asking these exact questions as I guided them. And here is what I have observed in the journeys of countless women I have walked beside. The fear of failure is not really about failing. It is about hope. It is about daring to hope that things could be different, that you could be different, because hope is vulnerable. Hope is dangerous. If you allow yourself to hope and then nothing changes, the disappointment will be unbearable. So part of you wants to stay frozen, because frozen is safe. Frozen is known. At least in the freeze, you know what to expect. You have adapted. You have learned to function. And maybe functioning without feeling is better than feeling and failing. Maybe numbness is safer than risking disappointment. But here is the truth that I must speak, even though it may be difficult to hear. Living frozen is not safe. It is death by 1,000 small surrenders. Every day you stay frozen is another day your creative force goes unexpressed. Your sexual power goes dormant. Your capacity for joy withers. The freeze that feels like protection is actually slow starvation of your life force, your soul, your essence, and your body knows this. Why do you think you are here, listening to these words? Some part of you, the part that has not completely given up, brought you here. That part knows. It remembers. It has been waiting for permission to thaw. And I am giving you that permission now, not as some external authority, but as a guide who knows this path, who has seen the ice melt, who has watched the sacred fire rekindle. You can do this. Not because I say so, not because you are special or chosen or different, but because this is how the alchemy works. Ice melts when heat is applied. Energy flows when blockages are released. Fire returns when the conditions for combustion are met. This is not magic. This is physics. This is biology. This is the natural intelligence of your own body remembering how to be alive. But it requires your participation. It requires you to show up, to do the practices, to breathe into the frozen place, even when it feels like nothing is happening, to move your pelvis, even when your mind screams that this is ridiculous, to sound the mantra, even when you feel self-conscious, to dance, even when every fiber of your being wants to stay still and controlled and safe. The great work is called great for a reason. It is not small. It is not easy. It is not comfortable. It demands everything. Your willingness to face the void, your courage to feel what has been unfelt, your commitment to persist even when transformation feels slow or non-existent. But the reward is your life, your aliveness, your power, your creative force unleashed, your sexual energy reclaimed, your capacity to feel joy, to want things, to be present in your own body. So I ask you again, what will you do with what you know? Will you choose the path of transformation? Or will you choose to forget, to go back to sleep, to pretend you never heard these words? The choice is yours. It has always been yours. And whatever you choose, know that you are choosing. Not choosing is also a choice. Staying frozen is a choice. And from this moment forward, you cannot pretend it is not. You have crossed the threshold simply by hearing this teaching. The only question that remains is, will you walk through? Will you commit to the great work? Will you become the living Atanor? Let me tell you what life looks like when your sacral center is open. When you have completed the journey from Nigredo to Rubedo. When the Atanor burns steadily with its own eternal flame. Because you need to see where this path leads. You need to know what you are walking toward. Your body feels different. There is warmth in your lower belly. Not an occasional warmth that comes and goes, but a steady, radiant heat that is always there. You can place your hand on your sacral center at any moment and feel it. Feel the aliveness, the pulsation, the energy moving through. You walk differently. Your hips move with fluidity. with natural sway. There is no rigidity, no holding, no apologizing for taking up space with your body. Your pelvis leads, your spine follows. You move through the world with a groundedness and a presence that others can feel even if they cannot name it. Desire returns. Not desperate, grasping, needy desire, but organic, natural desire that rises from your belly like warmth. You want to taste food, really taste it. You want to feel textures against your skin. You want to create. You want to move. You want to laugh. You want to be touched. You want to touch. The wanting itself becomes a source of aliveness, not something you have to manufacture or fake. Your sexuality. This is where the transformation is most profound. Sex is no longer performance. It is not something you do for someone else. It is not mechanical. It becomes communion, sacred play, an expression of the fire that burns in your core. You are present in your body during sex, fully present, feeling everything. And pleasure becomes your birthright again, not shameful, not guilty, not something you have to earn or deserve, just natural, just yours. And here is what I have observed in women who complete this work. Your relationships change. Not necessarily because you change partners, though that sometimes happens, but because you change. You show up differently. You are no longer performing, no longer abandoning yourself to please others, no longer giving from depletion. When you have access to your own life force, when your Atanor burns brightly, you give from overflow. You can be generous without martyring yourself. You can be present without losing yourself. You can love without disappearing. And people respond to this. They feel it. Because a woman with an open sacral center, she radiates something. Not something she is trying to project, but something that simply pours out of her because she is so full. Creativity flows, not as something you have to force or schedule or discipline yourself into, but as natural expression. Ideas come. Projects emerge. Your hands want to make things. Your voice wants to sing. Your body wants to dance. The muse returns, because the muse is not external. The muse is the voice of your own creative fire. And when that fire burns, the muse never stops speaking. But let me be clear about something. This is not a one-time transformation. Opening your sacral center is not like flipping a light switch It is not a permanent state you achieve once and then forget about. The Atanor must be tended. The fire must be fed. The practices must become part of your daily life. This is why I emphasize, make these practices daily. Not because you are broken and need fixing. Not because you have to work hard to maintain what you have gained. But because tending your inner fire is like tending any fire. It needs oxygen. It needs fuel. It needs attention. 3 minutes of breath into your sacral center every morning. 5 minutes of pelvic movement when you feel stuck. The sound Vam when you encounter resistance. Dance when you feel the freeze beginning to return. These are not burdens. They are not chores on your to-do list. They are love letters to your own body. They are ways of saying, I remember you. I honor you. I choose aliveness. And when you approach them this way, when you understand that you are not practicing to fix yourself, but to feed your sacred fire, they become joyful. They become something you want to do, not something you should do. Life as a living Atanor is not about perfection. It is not about never experiencing numbness or shutdown or moments of freeze. Those will still come. Stress will still affect you. Trauma responses will still be triggered. Old patterns will still arise. But here is the difference. You will notice faster. You will have tools. You will know how to return to the fire. You will not stay frozen for years, maybe not even for days, because you have built a relationship with your sacral center. You know its language. You can hear when it is calling out for warmth, and you know how to answer. Women who live as walking Atanors, I've watched them as their guide transform not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them. Because this energy is contagious, not in a way that demands anything from others, but simply through presence. When you are fully alive in your body, when your creative and sexual force is flowing, when your sacral fire burns, you give others permission to remember their own fire. You become a living reminder that transformation is possible, that the freeze is not permanent, that life force can return. And perhaps this is the deepest purpose of this work. Not just personal healing, not just individual awakening, but collective remembering. The restoration of what was stolen from women for thousands of years. the reclamation of the sacred fire that patriarchy tried to extinguish. Every woman who thaws her frozen sacral center, who rekindles her Atanor, who refuses to stay numb, is performing an act of revolution, is healing not just herself, but the feminine wound that runs through all of us. So when you do these practices, know that you are not doing them alone. You are joining a lineage of priestesses and mystics and ordinary women who refused to accept the freeze as their fate, who chose transformation even when it was dangerous, who tended their inner fire even when the world told them to put it out. You are part of this lineage now. You carry this knowing. You hold this flame. Here is what I invite you to do, starting today. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, not when conditions are perfect. Today, now, this moment. Choose one practice, just one. The breath work, the pelvic movement, the sound vam, the forgiveness ritual, the dance. Choose the one that calls to you most strongly, the one that scares you a little, the one that makes something in your belly stir, and commit to it for 21 days, every single day, even if just for 3 minutes, even if it feels like nothing is happening, even if your mind screams that this is pointless. Do it anyway. Because transformation is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It is about patient, persistent accumulation of small heat. It is about showing your body, your nervous system, your sacral center, that you are serious, that you are choosing aliveness, that you are willing to tend the fire even when it is just embers. And if you do this, if you show up every day for 21 days, something will shift. I promise you. Not because I have magical powers, but because this is how alchemy works. This is how ice melts. This is how fire returns. And then, after 21 days, add another practice. Layer them. Build on them. Create your own personal ritual of tending the Atanor. A morning practice, an evening practice, practices for when you feel stuck, practices for when you feel alive and want to amplify that aliveness. Make this work yours. Adapt it. Play with it. Let your body teach you what it needs. Because here is the final truth I will share with you. I can give you the map. I can teach you the practices. I can point you toward the path. But you must walk it. You must do the work. You must choose again and again and again to turn toward the frozen place and offer it warmth. No one can do this for you. No healer, no teacher, no partner, no guru. This is your initiation, your transformation, your sacred fire to tend. And you can do it. You already are doing it, simply by being here, simply by listening to these words, simply by placing your awareness on what has been frozen. The great work has begun. The ice is already starting to melt. The embers are already beginning to glow. Trust the process. Trust your body. Trust the ancient wisdom that flows through your cells. You are a living Atanor. You have always been. You are just remembering now, just coming home, just rekindling the eternal flame that never truly went out. It was only sleeping, waiting, ready to burn again. We began this journey in ice. Do you remember? That frozen landscape, that emptiness below your navel, where something vital used to live, that hollow space where desire, where creativity, where life force itself had gone to sleep. We started there, in Nigredo, in the void, in the acknowledgement of what has been lost. And I told you then, this is not a personal failure. This is not because you are broken. This is a collective freezing, a cultural wound, something that was done to you generation after generation for centuries. And now, look how far you have traveled. You know the map, the 5 alchemical stages, from frozen to flowing, from lead to gold, from death to rebirth. You know Salutio, the gentle melting through breath and movement. You know Albedo, the purification through forgiveness. You know Citrinitas, the kindling of the flame through sound and dance. You know the path to Rubedo, to becoming the living Atanor. More than knowing, you have felt it. You have placed your hands on your lower belly and breathed fire into the frozen place. You have moved your pelvis and remembered fluidity. You have sounded the mantra Vam and felt vibration breaking through ice. You have spoken words of forgiveness to your body. You have danced. You have allowed movement to move you. The practices are no longer abstract. They are real. They are yours. They live in your body now, and something has shifted. Check in with that space right now, that place below your navel, the place we began this journey. Place your awareness there. Place your hand there if you want. Feel it. Has something changed? Even slightly? Even subtly? Do you feel warmth where there was coldness? Aliveness where there was numbness? A pulse where there was only silence? That is the work. That is the alchemy. The great work does not announce itself with trumpets. It does not arrive as dramatic transformation overnight. It begins as embers, as gentle warmth, as the first crack in the ice, as the smallest movement of energy where everything was frozen. And if you feel nothing yet, if the freeze still feels solid and impenetrable, know this: the process has begun. You cannot place your awareness on the frozen place. You cannot offer it breath. You cannot acknowledge its existence without something changing. The act of witnessing is itself transformative. The act of turning toward instead of away, that is already alchemy. Remember what I told you about ice and water. Ice is not the opposite of water. Ice is water that has changed state, which means it can change state again. The energy has not disappeared. The desire has not vanished. The creative force, the sexual power, the capacity for joy and aliveness, it is all still there, frozen, waiting. And now you have the keys to thaw it. Now you know how to fan the embers back into flame. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning. The Atanor has been lit. The first heat has been applied. The ice is starting to melt. But the great work, the magnum opus, It is a lifelong practice, a daily tending, a constant choosing of warmth over freeze, of flow over stagnation, of aliveness over numbness. There will be days when the freeze returns, when stress overwhelms you, when old patterns reassert themselves, when you forget, even briefly, that you are a living Atanor. And on those days, you do not start over, you do not fail, you simply return, you breathe, you move, you sound, you dance, you remember. Because now you have the map. Now you know the way home. I have shared what I know, what I have learned through guiding women as a male teacher in their passage from frozen to flowing. What I have witnessed in countless women who walked this path before you. I have given you the practices that the ancient priestesses used, the rituals that have been hidden for centuries, the keys to unlock the sealed sacral center. But I cannot do the work for you. No one can. This is your initiation, your transformation, your fire to tend. And you can do it. Not because I believe in you, though I do. Not because you are special or chosen, though in a sense you are. You are here after all. You chose to listen. You chose to open to this teaching. You can do it because this is how the alchemy works. This is how transformation happens. This is the natural intelligence of your body remembering itself, remembering the fire, remembering how to be alive. The ancient traditions knew a woman with an open sacral center is dangerous to systems of control. She knows what she wants. She trusts her desire. She gives herself permission to feel pleasure. She creates from overflow. She moves through the world with power and presence. This is why the freeze was imposed. This is why your sacral fire was extinguished. Because a woman who is fully alive in her body, who has access to her creative and sexual force, cannot be controlled, cannot be made small, cannot be convinced to shrink. So when you do this work, when you thaw your frozen center, when you rekindle your Atanor, you are not just healing yourself. You are performing an act of reclamation, of revolution, of restoration. You are taking back what was stolen. You are remembering what was forgotten. You are reigniting the sacred flame that they tried to put out. And in doing so, you give permission to others, to other women who are frozen, who have forgotten their fire, who believe numbness is normal. Your aliveness becomes a beacon, a reminder, a living proof that transformation is possible, that the freeze is not permanent, that the fire can return. This is the deeper purpose of the great work, not just personal healing, but collective awakening. Every woman who completes this journey, who walks from Nigredo to Rubedo, who becomes a living Atanor, heals a piece of the ancient wound, restores a fragment of the lost knowledge, reweaves the web of feminine power that was torn apart. You are part of this now, part of this lineage, this restoration, this remembering. You carry the flame, and your only task, your only sacred responsibility is to keep it burning, to tend it daily, to protect it fiercely, to let it grow until it burns so brightly that others can warm themselves by your fire. So here is my final invitation to you, my final transmission. You are a living Atanor. You have always been. From the moment you were born, from before you can remember. The freeze was not natural. It was imposed. And now you are choosing to thaw, to melt, to burn again. Choose it today. Choose it tomorrow. Choose it every day. Make the practices your daily ritual, your morning prayer, your evening meditation, your constant return to the sacred fire within, and watch what happens. Watch how your body changes, how your relationships transform, how creativity flows, how desire returns, how life becomes something you participate in fully, not something you watch from behind frozen glass. The great work is waiting for you. The path from ice to fire, from frozen to flowing, from death to rebirth. And you do not walk it alone. You walk it with the ancient priestesses, with the tantric masters, with the Taoist alchemists, with every woman who has ever chosen warmth over numbness, aliveness over safety, fire over ice. I honor your courage in listening to these words. I honor your willingness to see the frozen place. to acknowledge what has been lost, to choose the path of transformation. And I trust, I know that you will continue this work, that you will tend your Atanor, that you will keep the flame burning. Because now you know, you cannot unknow, and that knowing will guide you home. The sacred fire awaits. It has always been waiting. And now, you remember how to tend it. If this teaching has touched you, if something has shifted inside as you listened, if you feel the first warmth returning to the frozen place, I would deeply honor hearing from you. Write in the comments below which practice called to you most strongly, or simply write 2 words, I felt it. Your words create a bridge. They let other women know they are not alone on this path. They strengthen the web we are weaving together. This is how we restore what was lost. Together, one woman, one flame, one Atanor at a time. May your fire burn brightly. May your Atanor never go cold again. May you remember always that you are not frozen. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply coming home. To yourself, to your body, to the sacred flame that has been waiting for you all along. Go tend your fire. The great work begins now.